Hello, day 4 of the Romford Film Festival 2025. We've just had our last session of the night. We had a short movie and a feature, and now we're talking to the creator of the short movie Wall. What's your name? And it seems redundant, but what did you do in the film?
Yeah, hi. First of all, thanks for having us.
Our pleasure. Our pleasure.
Real honour. So my name is Nik London. I'm the director and the writer of Wall. It's our second film so far.
I want to step back first a little bit and find out a touch about yourself, and in a different way. I'm not going to ask you about your childhood, do not worry. What was the first kind of film, the first kind of TV show, the first project out there that you saw that made you think, that's what I want to do with my life, I want to be a filmmaker?
Okay. For this specific project, might be easier for me to answer.
Yeah,
I was an 85 baby, so X-Files was a big influence on this project.
yeah.
I really wanted to make a kind of my English version of X-Files. So that's what inspired me with this. But in general, film in general, I was intoxicated by films as a child. It consumed me. And it's funny that I only took up making films, or this craft, if you will, only 3 years ago. So I come from a corporate background. I'm sure you have a lot of people with a similar story. So I come from a corporate background. I was a fraud investigator. I was a police officer before that. And I worked for corporate banks for like 12 years. And I just wasn't happy. I had a burning desire for film. And 3 years ago, we decided to make a film. Me and my wife actually helped me make Wall. She was the producer on the film. Thank you. Brilliant support. And then that's really what brought me to film. And we made our first film 3 years ago. The Deployment, that done quite well in the festival circuit, which I was really shocked. First film. You know, they say your first 10 film don't even apply for film festivals. I was really fortunate with the first one, and gratefully the second one in this festival as well. So it's just been a big roller coaster so early on in this craft, and I'm just going to keep going.
So, in terms of that, it's a hard thing to do, is to get a film out there, to get a film made. It's not easy at all, so you have to really persevere. And what is it about the craft, about filmmaking, that gets you up every day, even though you know you're going to be problem solving for the next however long, but what really is it that just burns your fuel?
Yeah, it's definitely all of that. I think what does it for me is, well, as a child, if I go back to my childhood, watching films was like my escape of this world. I was quite a shy person, so this is quite a big thing for me.
Yeah.
But film was really my escape, and I really wanted to. I love emotion in movies and things like that, and that's what really captured me about films. So writing was the first beginning part of that. Writing something that's compelling or entertaining or any kind of emotion, touching people's emotions. I think that's what does it. Makes me come back and back to this. So keep writing scripts. That's what keeps me up at night, wakes me up in the morning.
And how much from the initial inception of this idea has this changed? And I guess I like to ask, is there anything like real world that came along and shaped a little bit of the narrative for your show?
Yeah, this one specifically, I mean, you know, the advice is to write what you know,
Yeah.
right? So I try and do that with every project. So obviously coming from a police background, so I was a PC for 7 years. So the whole detective kind of mystery, thriller, you know, and the touch of supernatural comes from my love of other films. But I think that aspect really kind of helped me write this and really get I'm really proud of the actual actors in this movie, because they're really opposites of what you see on the screen. And we were able to pull that performance out. I think that helped. My background helped to pull that out. So understanding how police officers talk, move, act, react.
And you managed to pull these performances from your characters, from your cast. Was there anything that happened on set that you remember that you couldn't possibly have scripted, or it happened a little bit better than you could have ever imagined, and it's in the final project?
Yes, there's a few things, but the biggest one was one of our locations failed at the last minute. we couldn't get it. And I already booked in the cast and the crew to come to start filming. So what happened was I decided with my father's help to build the last set that you see in the final act.
Nice.
We just built that in our garden, actually. Really big double bedroom, obviously paper thin on the outside, but it worked. You couldn't really tell, right? I think that was something that worked out way better than I thought, because I've never done anything like that. I'm good with my hands, I'm good crafting and stuff like that, but I've never built a room as such, and it really worked out well.
And of course, filmmaking, you have to take on every single hat, especially at this level: editing, writing, sound, sing the theme tune, all that good stuff. What is your absolute favourite thing about filmmaking? Your favourite part of the process? The writing, the shooting, the post-production? What's your absolute favourite part?
I think I enjoy many parts, but I think the biggest bit is when I start putting music to the scenes that we're shooting. So post-production, it's just, I think you just get the emotion out. Once you add music, it's just a different layer of feeling and emotion. I think for me personally, because that's every time I watch a movie myself, even as a child, it's when that score just kicks in and you get that performance going, and it's just, it's an amalgamation of stuff, right? From the set to the costumes to the actors, and then that music. It always got me as a child, and I think that's my favourite part.
Is there anything in your short that you kind of, because you sound like you like a lot of movies, so you've taken a lot of inspiration from different places, and you've taken inspiration from your real life career. Is there anything in this movie that you put in there that maybe someone like me or a general audience member wouldn't get or wouldn't see? It's kind of like an Easter egg that you're particularly proud of.
I can't think of it off the top of my head. Easter egg. Yeah, I can't think right now at the top of my head. Can we come back to that?
Yeah, we'll come back to that. We'll come back to that.
Yeah.
What I was going to do though is I'm going to throw it out. Is there anybody in the audience who has any questions about the short? Yep.
How do you approach run time in a short film? You'll film, what, 10 minutes, 9 minutes?
Just over 8 minutes, 8.5 minutes, yeah.
How do you approach the sort of pacing?
Yeah.
How do you know that's the kind of film and you don't want too much fat on it? How do you approach that?
I tell you what, I had a real problem with pacing, especially with the first film. That was a much more slower film, that was. And that was around 10 minutes as well. And, as filmmakers, you kind of, whenever you shoot something, you put so much effort into it and you try and jam it all in, but the end product just fails because of that. So with this specific film, I just used my, look, we all watch films, right? I'm assuming everyone's a film fan here. So you just use it's more of a feeling, actually, than structural. So there is a structure that you can use, obviously, first, second, third act, but then you've got to go deeper into that, right? And I think it's more of a feeling than anything else. I think most of us, if you really look deeper, you can actually see, you can feel when you're lingering too much, and then you can break that up with something, right? You don't necessarily have to cut it and move on, but you can break that up, and the pacing adjusts as you do that. I think that's the best way I could explain that. It's only my second film, so I'll get a better answer for you another year down the line.
Anyone else? Well, on that, this is your second film. You've now made 2 films. Absolutely amazing, by the way. Well done. It's not an easy feat. But what would you say to an aspiring filmmaker coming through the ranks now with what you've learned as a bit of advice for them?
Yeah. I think just purely from the way I started doing films, I never studied film. I really analysed films, and I put kind of 6 months to a year aside from doing my day job to really study filmmaking from books, online sources, etc. Talking to other people, other directors. I went to film festivals as well, speak to people, and I really set up a course for myself and really self-educated. I was planning to go to film school and go back to university, but I was told by many people, just do see what you've got firstly, right?
Yeah.
Jump in before you're ready. If you've got a vision and a story in your head, let's see what you can do. Let's just make your first film, put it out there, keep it nice and simple. Weirdly, I didn't. My first one was a thriller sci-fi, which is crazy for the first one, but it worked out. You see, I didn't even anticipate that would work, but I knew that if I went through that motion first, and I can actually establish whether this is something that I like and something that I can stick with over a year period, that single project, even that's quite difficult sometimes. Sometimes you're with a project for 2 to 3 years, just in the writing phase, and I didn't even know if I could handle that. But just going before you're ready, I think is the best approach. It's risky, but I tell you what, that's where the fun is.
And with your finished projects so far, when they've been shown to audiences and they've been seen them, both shots that you've made so far, when they've been out there, have you ever had a reaction or a comment from an audience member that's kind of shocked you in a way as how they saw the movie? Not necessarily like their reaction to what it was like, but like what message they took from it.
Yeah, it's funny when you're making a film and you put it out there. It's like you as a director or a filmmaker, you've got a vision of what your project is, and you see it a very specific way, right?
Yeah.
I can't remember what it specifically was, but I remember someone who watched it. It could have been a family member or a friend or feedback round that we did, and they just saw the film totally different.
Yeah.
And I remember actually changing the edit, the final cut before we pushed it out, because I loved the way they saw it. So it was very bizarre. I'm not like that. I'm normally I know what I want, but they spotted something and they said, oh, I saw that person and that meant that, and I said, actually, that's a really good idea. I gave him credit for that. So I just changed it on a whim, and I just can't remember what it was, but that was an interesting kind of thing I come across.
Shows quite a lot of strength as well as a filmmaker that you took that on board as well, though, and so it's good that you took the feedback, because I think a lot of people would be like, no, I made this film and that's what it's meant to be.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm a bit older as well. Like coming into this game, I came into 35. I started like learning about film, right? And then 36, 37ish, I made the first one. I'm 40 now. So kind of that maturity kind of allowed me to just learn, be a learner instead of this is what I want. So I think age worked for me for when I started to do this career. So it's really, really good. And in that sense, it helps out a lot.
So what's next? What are you planning on next? You got any irons on the fires? Anything? Projects?
Absolutely. Yeah, we always have, right?
Yep.
There's 4 to 5 scripts I've got nearly complete. I'm just deciding on the one I want to make next for a short before I move on to kind of feature work, perhaps. So the next one is it's not gone so far where I've got a specific logline at the moment, but it is I guess we're going to try and do a western-ish southern, so it's going to be big in costume, big in set, if you will. There might be a lot of stock images involved if we stay in London, but we might travel for this one, get a bit more bigger. Every film I do, I like to expand, get a bigger cast, bigger crew, and just expand on every level so we can learn as much as we can in the short period of time that we got with the film. So that's what we're going to try and do with the next one. Yeah.
So I'm going to wrap up with this last question here, and it's a fun one. And I've not asked this yet at the festival, so perfect time to do it because it'll just ease things out. So basically, it sounds like you love a lot of films, and that's a great thing for a filmmaker who loves films. You're inspired by films. If you could go back and remake any one classic movie that you absolutely love, however, only the main character is a human being and everybody else is a puppet, what classic film would you remake as puppets?
Ooh. As puppets? That's a very specific question.
Of course it is.
Are you like puppets?
I love puppets.
I love puppets. I tell you what, because of my love of this movie, the aesthetics, it's one of my favourite aesthetic movie. Blade Runner.
Nice.
So I think Blade Runner would be the one.
And who's the human character? Is it still Deckard or?
It would be Deckard, yeah, absolutely Deckard. Yeah, you can't change him. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for bringing your short movie to the festival. Thank you for submitting, letting us show it, and most of all, thank you for being here tonight. I know this was nerve-wracking for you, but it's been brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having us.
Can I get a little applause?
Thank you.